Hi, my name's Kevin Hicks. Welcome to the History Squad. Now, this video has been voted in by our Patreon members. Now, every month we do a Patreon poll and they get to choose what video we're going to record for one of the weeks of the month. This one is all about my personal stories as Kevin, the police officer, Kevin, the Bobby on the beat. But let me explain. Bobby, it's an English term. It's affectionate. It comes from Sir Robert Peel, Home Secretary and one of the important founders of the Metropolitan Police in 1829. You also get peelers from Sir Robert Peel, but I was never called a peeler. Mostly I was actually called a copper. Hey, copper, what are you doing? But that's from 1704. This is amazing, isn't it? It's from the Oxford Dictionary. It's to apprehend, to capture. It's a fair cop, gov. You've caught him. You're a copper. So, without further ado, let's get into some of my stories from my time on the beat in Denham in Buckinghamshire, England. So, my first story. Now, before I actually go into the story, let me explain. As a Bobby on the beat, way back in the late 80s, early 90s, we wore a tunic and a policeman's helmet. I had a whistle, a truncheon, a notebook and handcuffs, and an old pie radio, which wasn't very good. But I used to wander around my beat on my own. No backup to speak of. It was the old days, I suppose you'd call it. No stab vest and no stun guns or anything. Pretty good job, really, because if you'd have given me any kind of stun gun, people would have been collapsing just for fun. But you never knew what was going to happen. And I'm wandering around on the beat saying good morning, checking up on old ladies and things like this that I used to do when the radio burst into life. And I received a message that there's a death, and they gave me the address, and they says, and the widow is distraught. So this sounded routine. So off I walked. It's only 10 minutes away. I knock on the door flies open, and into my arms falls this elderly lady. And I mean, she collapsed into my arms. Her head is pressed so tight against me, and the tears are flowing. She's sobbing, inconsolable. Neighbours are coming out. So I walk her back into the house. I knew where the kitchen was, which is vital because that's where they keep the tea. I managed to just pull her back, and she is flooding with tears. But here, printed is P-Y-E from my radio, pie. And I saw it. I didn't laugh because this is serious stuff. And I said to her, where is your husband's body? He's in the car. I said, I'm sorry. He's in the car. He's in the boot. The boot in English, American, Canadian, it's the trunk. And all of a sudden, I've gone from a routine death of an elderly person to a murder. Is it a murder? What on earth has happened? And I've now got the image of a crunched up husband who's been murdered in the boot of her car, in the trunk of her car. So I says, well, will you show me? Yes, of course I will. So off we trundle up the path, and there is this motor car there. And she opens the boot and we lift it open. And there's no body in there. There's just a large wooden box with a brass plate on it. There he is, she said. And I'm looking, and then I can read. It's his ashes. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. She says, you best come inside, PC Hicks. And the tears started to flood. So I picked up husband, put him under my arm, shut the boot of her car, and we walked back to the house. I made the tea. I sat her down. And I says, what's this all about? When did your husband die? Oh, he's been dead for 2 years now. And I'm a bit confused. I says, well, why are his ashes in the boot of your car? She said, oh, there's a big family dispute. It's my second marriage, and the children from the first marriage want him burying miles away, and I'll have to pay so much money to get him across the different parish boundaries to be buried in their churchyard. They won't put any money towards it, so there's this big family feud, and they keep phoning me up and they keep having a go, and I don't know what to do with him. Tears are flooding out. So I says, right, first of all, you can't keep him in the trunk, the boot of your car. Oh, why not? Somebody might steal your car. Oh. I said it would, of course, settle the problem, wouldn't it? And she actually smiled. Now we're getting somewhere. So I said, tell you what we do. If you got a shovel? Yes. I says, we'll put him in a nice black bin bag and we'll bury him in the garden for now. Then he's safe, nobody knows where he is, and you can go and pay your respects. And when you move, you can actually take him with you. How does that sound? Oh, PC Hicks, that's a wonderful idea. I says, great. All right then, let's do it. So, cup of tea, a couple of ginger nut biscuits later, we've buried the poor departed in the garden. That's the ashes, so we say. And she is so grateful. And all I did was contact the stepdaughter. And I says, can you just ease off a little bit? And she complied, because I used to go and check on the old lady. But it just goes to show you, you never know what's round the corner when you're a bobby on the beat. The body in the boot. Well, my next story is interesting because I'd been given a motorcycle by the police. Thames Valley Police there realised that I didn't have one beat, I had several. In fact, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, I had 5 separate beats, and it was quite a distance to get to them. So they give me a nice little Honda 125 motorcycle. No lights, no markings that it was a police cycle, but I had all of the gear. The long boots, the helmet, the goggles, the whole business. So I would poodle around, park up, leave my bike and go and deal with whatever problem there was. And this one day, it was quite early in the day, I think about 10 o'clock, so the rush hour is just about finishing, because my beat was just on the very western side of London. And there's the normal banter going on the radio, and I've got it plugged into my ear in these days. We're getting progress there. And I hear a shout goes up, horses loose, running up and down the A40. Now the A40 was a main arterial road into London. And there's a full herd of horses galloping up and down and panicking. I was about to reply that I'm 5 minutes away when another policeman comes up. I'm on the scene. He says, all under control, I've got the owner here, the gate's open, we're just going to herd the horses into the field. And I thought, great. Yeah, no problems at all. So I get back onto my motorcycle and I'm heading in that direction anyway. I wasn't going to avoid it. I thought they might need an extra hand when all of a sudden a panicked police officer's voice, oh my goodness me, comes over the radio. The owner's had a heart attack. I need help. The horses are back. I need assistance. And I responded, I was a matter of minutes away. And as I come down the road, there are horses everywhere. Traffic stopped. The North Orbital Road going into the A40. Oh my goodness me, pandemonium. Horns are blaring, horses clippity-clop and neighing. And one police officer who looked a little bit flustered, bless him, trying to herd the horses. And he shouted at me, can you see to the owner? Can you see to the man? And then I look, and over by the entrance to the field is this man lying down. And when I looked at him, his lips were bright blue, and I thought, oh my goodness me. I tried to feel for a pulse. I couldn't find one. Straight away, you go into the medic mode. Compressions, mouth to mouth in those days, all those kind of things. And in no time at all, he come round. And I thought, oh, wow. Training kicks in. I sit him up, bring his legs up so that he's comfortable. And he starts to groan. And oh my gosh, what's going on? Meanwhile, horses still running everywhere. They're trying to get them in. There's more people helping now. And he starts to groan. And I realise he's trying to speak. And I'm leaning right into him. I just can't hear. He's going, And I thought, oh, he's trying to give me his last words. He thinks he's going to die. That's what I genuinely thought. So I lean right in, and just as I lean right in, I've put my ear right next to his mouth. I'm just managed to pick out a few words from this poor man. The words were very simple. You're standing on my foot. When I looked down with my great big motorcycle boots, I had leaned in on him to help him, and I was crushing his foot. Immediately I removed the foot. The ambulance, which we'd already called, turns up. Straight away they deal with him. It was a heart attack. Only a mild one, but enough. And away he goes. Now, I didn't think anything more of it. I used to keep an eye on the field, make sure nobody left those gates open. And that was it until about, I don't know, 3-4 weeks later. I'm walking on foot patrol just outside the shops there. And this gentleman runs up to me. "Oh, PC Hicks, PC Hicks." And I looked at him, I says, "Hello." And he threw his arms around me. And I was a bit perplexed because I didn't recognise him. And he says, "You saved my life." And I went, "Oh, now I recognise you. You're not bright blue, are you?" And we laughed. And he then stops all of the people on the parade there where the shops were and says, "This man saved my life." And I looked at him. I said, "Do you remember I was standing on your foot?" And he says, "It really hurt. You never know what's going to happen on the beat." Now, one of the problems of being in the police force is you're always short of men. And this one occasion, I was taken off the beat and put into what we called a panda car, a police car, together with a fellow officer, Barry. We'd both been in the Royal Military Police together, so you had the soldierly banter. We got on still, in fact, we're still friends, get on like a house on fire. And we're minding our own business, patrolling the area. Don't want anything to do with anybody because it's cold out there. We've got our police greatcoats on and our flat caps with the checkered band. And all of a sudden, our call sign is called up. "Can you come to the police station?" So we think, oh, something's going off. And we turn up and waiting for us is policemen with guns. Whoa, something out of Hollywood. There they were with their different guns and all their equipment. And there's a superintendent there with them. And me and Barry, we're kind of looking at them with our scarves and our greatcoats and our flat hats. And say, "Hello, sir. What can we do for you?" And he says, "You two were in the army, weren't you?" And Barry and I look at each other, wanting to say no, but of course they knew we were in the army. And they said, "We want you to do a bit of tracking and sneaking up for us." And we looked at them wide-eyed. What? There's firearms and heavy drugs involved. It's what you might call a gypsy camp. We want you to walk around the woods, come in the back. And then we want to see if you can look over the back fence, but you've got to be careful because there's lots of dogs. And the location where they were at, there's 30 or 40 vans, trailers full of these people. Some of them I already knew could be very violent. And the thought, oh, they've got firearms. Right. So off we go into the dark, and it's gone midnight, and it's a dark old night. And we go round the back of the woods, and we're walking this way and we walk in that, trying to find our way to this perimeter fence at the back of this gypsy site. Scared that some of their dogs might be there. So I'd got my steel torch, your Magellite torch there, just in case Barry was doing the same. And we get close to the fence, the perimeter fence, but we can't see over it. There's so many bushes and scrap iron and stuff there. So I says to Barry, I says, "Let's move down this way." And as I says, "Let's move down this way," I fell down a hole and I completely disappeared. I was gone. Barry now, he's going, Kevin, where are you?" And I'm going, "I'm down here." He says, "Down where?" We're both down the hole. So I help him up out of the hole. He helps me back out of the hole. And we're a little bit muddy and a bit smelly because the hole was used for other things. Let's not go into details. And then I come up with a great idea. I says, "Let's climb a tree." But what I did was I put my hands together and proffered them to Barry. And I says, "Come on, let's climb a tree." Barry puts his foot into mine. I wouldn't have done it. And I lift him up into the tree. We should have looked at the tree first. Because it wasn't a nice big tree, it was a very small tree. And Barry goes up the tree, and the tree then goes over like this, suspending Barry halfway over the perimeter fence. The dogs go berserk. Barry is screaming because he's upside down and there are dogs trying to bite him. I have got both our Magellite torches in my pocket, and all Barry could see was 2 Magellite beams up in the air as I ran into a tree. I eventually found my way back to Barry, rescued him. As we pull out of the woods, the raid goes in. As we go round to the front, the senior officer waiting for us, and they're going, "Well done. You distracted everybody. Well done for doing that." And me and Barry looked at each other, slightly muddy, slightly smelly. Little did they know what really happened. So this story's a little bit amusing, but a little bit sad at the same time. As I've mentioned before, I often had to deal with death, a tremendous amount of death, really. And I got a routine call to an old folks' home. A man had passed away. So I turn up, and there is the matron, in fact. "Oh, hello, Kevin," she says. I said, "Oh, right. Is it Mrs. Jones or Mr. Jones?" It's Mr. Jones. Before I went in, she says, "Could you help us out?" And I said, "What's the problem?" He's passed away. He's on the toilet." I says, "Oh, the doctor's on his way. Could you do me a favour, Kevin?" And I says, "Yes." He says, "Mrs. Jones is really upset. This, his trousers around his ankles, the deceased, and it looks very embarrassing. He was a dignified man. Could you move him for us?" Well, as a police officer, normally it's other people who do the moving of the bodies. I've moved a few, I will be honest, but this particular kind of case, it was the undertakers would have moved him. And she says, "Please." And I says, "Yeah, I will. I'll go in and have a look." And there, sure enough, on the toilet there was a rather large, portly, very overweight elderly gentleman, as dead as a doornail. And there's the smell of burning. And I'm thinking, well, this is a bit weird. And then I realised he'd still got a cigarette in his hand. He was burning his hand. So we got rid of that. I radioed up for assistance and give a sketchy excuse. And along comes the exact same police officer who was dealing with the horses on the A40 road. And he says to me, he says, "What do you want, Kev?" I said, "Well, this is the problem." And I showed him the corpse. "How on earth are we going to move him?" And I says, "Right, brilliant idea. We'll get a blanket from the bedroom. We'll lay it outside the toilet door." Now, this was a very small toilet. And I said, "I will get behind him as best I can, push him. You get to the side of him and then push him out the door." He says, "Brilliant." I says, "Then we can drag the blanket to the bedroom, hoist him onto the bed. Job done." "Great idea," he says. So I get a little bit down the side and I'm this close to the corpse. It's very unpleasant. But hey, the poor widow, she was in bits. And as I put my arm behind him, the other policeman is ready at the other side front, and I push. And I heaved this guy so hard that he hit the other policeman, crushing him against the wall. He's letting out a scream. The matron, "Is everything all right, PC Hicks?" "Yeah, everything's fine," I said, as we heaved this poor man out through the door. The other policeman, he called me a few names. However, we got him out onto the blanket. And we hauled this man all the way across the hallway into the downstairs bedroom. And then we couldn't get him on the bed. I don't know if you've ever noticed this in any of your experiences. Dead people don't help you. They just lie there. How are we going to get him from the floor onto the bed? So 2 police officers stand on the edge of the bed with the hand each of the deceased. And we pull him inch by inch until we finally get him onto the bed. Then drag him up the bed, cover him over with a quilt, and the matron comes in. "Oh, thank you, PC Hicks." I said, "That's okay." She says, "The doctor's on his way." And the widow came in. "Oh, thank you." And I went into the kitchen, and matron and I had a cup of tea and the proverbial couple of ginger nuts. And the doctor turns up, and he has me into the bedroom because I'm the deputy coroner's officer, as it were. And he says, "Yeah, I expected this." I says, "Oh, right." I says, "He was on the toilet." He says, "So matron's explained, and you moved the body?" I says, "Yeah." He said he'd got 10 fatal illnesses. He says, "I'll sign the death certificate." And then he showed me the list of illnesses this guy had got, and it was quite amazing that he'd even lasted this long. But then the doctor looked at me and he says, "Kevin," we knew each other, me and the doc, and he says, "How did you get him on the bed?" And I says, "Why'd you ask?" He says, "Well, he wasn't very tall in life, but he appears to be a bit longer now." And when I explained that we dragged him, he says, "You've stretched him. Don't worry, everything will go back into shape in time for the funeral." I smiled and left. The undertakers can take him away. I used to call in on the widow, and she was always eternally grateful for the two policemen who gave her husband a little bit of dignity in death. They're all gone now, so I can tell that story, because if they'd have known the whole story, they might not have been quite so grateful. But hey. So I've never forgotten the day I was given a probationary constable to assist with my duties for a couple of weeks on the beat. What happens is this: when you join the police, you go through police training, police college, and you keep going backwards and forwards, but you also have to do attachments. And one of the attachments was being attached to an area beat officer. That was me. And I've got this young policeman, this young copper. He's enthusiastic. He's dealt with a few jobs, no problems at all. We're just going past Denham Shops, the parade there. We just almost passed them, and he turned to me and he says, "What would you do, Kev, if a plane crashed now?" And I says, "Don't say things like that. Don't mention train crashes, plane crashes. You never know what's going to happen." You see, there'd been a train crash years before, not far away. Fatal, not very good. And as we're walking along, my radio suddenly barks into life. "Alpha Charlie 25, Alpha Charlie 25. And I went, "Go ahead, over." "Plane crashed, Denham Airfield." And I almost says, "You're joking, aren't you? Will you respond?" I says, "Yeah, we'd got a car not far away." So I turned and looked at my probationary constable, and he went, "I'm sorry." We get into the police car, blue lights, and away we go up to Denham Airfield, only 5 minutes away. And sure enough, a plane had crashed. But not just any plane. It was a Blenheim bomber from the Second World War. And this plane was right across the 18th fairway of Denham Golf Club. Very prestigious golf club. And we've parked in the car park. I've walked over. The fire brigade have turned up. They're dragging somebody out who's injured, I think the pilot. And all of a sudden, a golf ball bounces off the wing, ding, straight past me. And I turn round, and there is an elderly gentleman with cravat and open neck shirt, all the golf paraphernalia you can imagine, with the biggest handlebar moustache you've ever seen. And I says, "Do you mind?" "Mind," he says. "I'm playing through on the 18th fairway. Who's dumped that bloody plane there?" And I said, "Oh," he says, "Well, I saw what he tried to do. He tried to touch down and come back. You don't do that with a Blenheim bomber. I know that, because I flew them in the bloody war, don't you know?" He tucks his golf club under his arm and storms off to get himself a glass of whatever at the golf club. I laughed. I was also sad, because smashed up in front of me was a Second World War Blenheim bomber. But you know what? They took that plane away and they rebuilt it. It's still flying to this very day. So the last story I'm going to give you, I actually get hurt, but it's all to do with a mini riot. It was actually classed as a riot. It's a public order thing. Two gangs of youths are fighting it out outside a Chinese restaurant. We've turned up. I'm driving the riot van, but we weren't the riot police. We were just ordinary bobbies. It's a Saturday night, so we were, heavy on the ground. There was a few police officers there. As we turn up, I can see there are already police officers in amongst the gangs, and they're getting a bit of a kick-in. One of the police officers was one of our WPCs, one of our women police officers, Claire. And somebody got around the neck, so I went straight in and I simply took him out. Now, what people don't realise about ex-military policemen, we're trained in unarmed combat, army unarmed combat, but I'd had a second load. I'd been in the army before, and I'd been trained in unarmed combat really well by a member of the parachute regiment from the Second World War, would you believe? So I really knew my stuff. So I took this guy down, took him out, put him in the back of the wagon. No problems at all. Then I saw our sergeant. Somebody was really trying to choke him, so I took him out as well. This guy turned, had a go at me. I put him down, drag him to the wagon, throw him in. I then step into the wagon, and as I step into the wagon, the first man I put in there drop kicked me straight in the chest. Now, next to the entrance was already one policeman who'd been hurt. He'd been kicked in the groin really bad, and he was quite poorly. What I didn't know was that kick to my chest had actually pushed my chest in. I was furious. So I went into the back of that wagon there, and I subdued both of the men that were fighting. sat them down, handcuffed them properly. The riot now subdues. There are more and more police arriving, more and more arrests are being made. So I drive the wagon back to Amersham police station because of the amount of people we'd arrested. My chest was absolutely killing me. What I didn't realise is my sternum had been pushed into my heart. And as I'm driving along with the blue lights and the sirens, I passed out at the wheel. I remember Dougie, the sergeant there, leaning across and grabbing me and pulling the handbrake and bringing everything to a halt. The next thing I remember was I'm being put into an ambulance and I wake up in hospital. What had happened was my sternum had slowed my heart rate down, but then it had simply popped back out and I was all right. I was bruised, really quite badly bruised. Well, I did the paperwork, the statements, the reports, the individual being charged with assaulting a police officer and a fray, all that kind of stuff, and away it all goes. It took me a few weeks to recover, actually, from a severely bruised chest. And then I get a summons to appear in court, and it's a big deal. There are lots of young men are up for the rioting, the affray, and amongst it all, there is the two for assaulting police officers. The one who'd assaulted me. Now, his attorney at law, his barrister, really did mean business. And he was trying to turn the whole thing around. And he kept pointing at me and saying, you are certainly the one who did this, who did that. And I can't see how you could subdue my client. And then he points to the accused, who was at least 3 or 4 inches taller than me. And obviously worked out a lot because he was a bigger boy. And I then explained, I said, well, I'm trained in unarmed combat. I says, both in the British Army and in the police. So I simply use that. He said, I don't see how you could subdue him. I put it to you that you used violence against him other than that you've been trained to use. And I went, no. I said, if you wish, I'll show you exactly what I did. And you could have heard a stone drop in the courtroom because it was packed. And you then all of a sudden seen the three at the bench there, the judges suddenly go, oh, this is interesting. I said, all I need is somebody I can demonstrate on, your worships. And everybody then looked at the barrister and he went, I suppose I'll have to volunteer then. And they gave me permission to step down. And I went down into the floor of the court. And I said, it's very simple. This is what I did. And I put him into a gooseneck and hammerlock and bar and put him down on the ground and then lifted him up and walked him round the courtroom twice. And his lovely words were, no further questions, your worship. And he went and sat down and he looked at me as if to say, ow, my arm hurt. But all it was police hold. And I showed him what? Just at that moment, he had a word with his client who changed his plea to guilty. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video of my times when I was in the police. If you did, like, share and subscribe. And if you'd like to support the channel a little further, have a look at our Patreon community. The link is in the description. And I'll tell you, community it is. We have some fun. Now, before I go, I'd like to give a shout out to some of those Patreon members. We have Peter Keane and Mary Reese and Britt and Eli from down under in Australia, one of the favourite places in the world of mine. My family have been going there for many years, some of them on a one-way ticket, courtesy of His Majesty's government. But that is a different story. Bye for now.